Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. We are about to start playing part two of the continuation where I'm talking with my docs and partners about them just being master clinicians and super GPs, and they're going through the whole life cycle of, from online all the way to complex presentation and acceptance. And these are large, sometimes 6-digit cases. So if you haven't heard part one, I highly encourage you to stop and go back an episode and get some context for where we're about to go. But if you're ready to go with part two, you've already listened to it, let's rock and roll. So we've talked about kind of the photos. We've talked about aggregating records and baselines. Now I want to get into the next phase of, a large 6-digit case where there's tons of dentistry that needs to be done, being able to actually diagnose that, right? So you've got all the records that we just talked about, the aforementioned records, but you have to be able to say, this is what it is, and this is what you need. And then getting into the next step, which is the presentation. So I'd like you guys to take someone from that, because I want to give scope on what it takes to do giant, big cases like this, so that someone says, like, yeah, I've got the gumption. I really want to get in there. I've got the chops to do all the things that these guys are doing, or maybe I'm already doing it, but I want to tweak this. So tell me a little bit more about that from the diagnosis to then presentation.
So I will say, anytime I do anything like that, you want a blueprint for what you're doing. And so a diagnostic setup, wax up, all that kind of stuff is fundamental in all of these cases. And
I guess it matters which case we're talking about, right, Gandhi? If we're talking about an open bite, 28 veneer, FMR case, let's just call it 28 porcelain restorations, 28 for open, that's a different conversation than maybe one that Currie has a lot, which is an all on X, right? Or a hybrid bridge scenario, or
in Currie's situation, it's all of that's done digitally. So it's like, It's hard a lot of times to show that, but you can use software like, DSD, digital smile design, which you can show people, but then you got to understand facial aesthetics, facial analysis. That's super important. Where do teeth go in the smile? And once you understand those fundamentals, you can design a smile and show people in just a few minutes, this is what I envision for you. And this is something tangible that you can look at, that this is what I envision for you, and you can get their feedback. And that's something that when they say yes, I ultimately share that with the ceramist or the person that's going to design their blueprint, their wax up. And then also, for Currie, that's something that he could show with, the lab that he works with to design.
More showing a pre-existing model of what a hybrid denture actually is, and then and having a bunch of before and after photos at the ready to understand, like have their light bulb click on about like what this thing is that we're actually talking about, because we're no longer talking about just fixing teeth, we're talking about full on like jaw prosthetics. And you really need to spend time educating on that angle to make sure that light bulb goes on. But a big part of it for me is just like, I don't have to get into weeds with diagnosing with them. If they're already on an all-on-X kind of consult. Now it's different if you're diagnosing out of hygiene and it's like, this person thinks they're here for cleaning and find like 28 just blasted crown margins. Like, oh God, this is going to ruin this person's day. And like, this is going to blindside them. But most of these people are coming in as consults, already having a pretty good idea that they're in distress because they've had trouble chewing or in pain or bad aesthetics or whatever for long enough to Google around and make an appointment to come talk about all-on-X kind of stuff. So that's such a foreign thing for most people that it's more like, I do a quick diagnosis from a CT scan and a look in their mouth from all the photos and whatever, and confirm with myself that this is a doable thing. And then it's a matter of giving them the comfort that we know how to do it and we can do it. And if they need to explain, if they need to know the how and the why, we can get into that. But for me, it's all about analogies. Like, people can't have a 15-year dental school crash course in an hour and understand like why they need the thing and how we can do the thing. That's not why they're there. They're there to understand that there is a solution, that you know how to do it, that they understand what that solution is, because that's a big part that I harp on. I'm like, look, I inherit a ton of cases from some of the big corporate places that do full arch dentistry, and they come in and they're like, I went to sleep thinking I was getting a bunch of implants and teeth, and I woke up and I had like this thing in there. Like, what is, like, why is it white and pink? Why is it only on a handful of implants? Like, holy shit, like nobody told you.
No one told you?
Yeah. Like, you didn't like really grasp what a hybrid was. You thought you were getting individual like crown and bridge implants. That's horrifying that you didn't get that level of detail, much less whatever else you needed, you know? So analogies is what it's all about for me. I use analogies all the time where if you're replacing teeth, it's like buying a car. And there's generally a handful of tiers that we can get you a golf cart, we can get you a Toyota, we can get you a Porsche, I can get you a Ferrari. They're all going to get you around town. Some are going to be way more comfortable, way sexier than the others. Some are going to have a much bigger price tag. If you buy a Porsche or a Toyota, you know, like the baseline Porsche and the top line Toyota, whatever the trim package is, can be huge discrepancies. So those 4 buckets are kind of like the shittiest thing in town is a golf cart. Welcome to dentures. Like it'll get you there, but it's going to be a little uncomfortable and it's slow and just kind of not great. Next phase up is implant dentures. Okay, so we got like a Toyota or an Acura or something like that. It's not free, but it's definitely like a lot of bang for your buck. But at the end of the day, you're still driving a Toyota, no matter like, or let's call it a Honda. Like no matter how many thousands of dollars of kits you put into making your car try to pretend that it's a Ferrari, it's still a Honda, right? Like you got to take it out at night. It's made of acrylic. It's a gangster denture, but it's a denture. Next phase up would be our Porsche. That's a hybrid denture. So, and realistically, the price tags are intentionally kind of in that ballpark. You know, it's maybe an $80,000 dual arch because you're buying a Porsche, right? And you came to a Porsche dealership today, and we're not trying to sell you Hondas because I have no interest in selling acrylic, shitty, all-on-fours, whatever. And we can get kind of further into the weeds on that as like the back end of the analogy, but then.
So wait, you mentioned a Ferrari. What would the Ferrari analogy be?
So the Ferrari would be the individual implant, crown, and bridge. And that's why it's always last. Very few people are good candidates for it. There's oftentimes very little indication for it. Some people, and I'll tell them, I'll be like, look, you know, if you buy a Ferrari, you're not going to go any faster than the Porsche will if you're in town. Like while you're in Atlanta, you don't need a Ferrari unless you feel like driving a Ferrari. Like, and some people want to show that they have money or status, and that's like part of the reason for their Ferrari. It's not necessarily the driving experience. It's part of like who they are.
Right.
We have those too, and there's value in that too. If patients want to have people know they had work done, it's like ladies don't get massive boob jobs trying to be subtle. They're putting them out there because they want to be looked at. Like they're making a statement point. If they're trying to be supernatural and be incognito, they're going to go with a much more natural look. It's in that kind of like, are you intentionally flaunting or are you not? And a lot of people, bad indications for a Ferrari anyway. You're going to spend a ton of money and you've already got perio. Trying to do 14 millimeter tall crowns are going to look like shit. You're going to spend so much money. It's going to be less predictable. And you never want the top thing to be what you're recommending anyway. You want to be number 2. You want it to be the second most expensive thing. That's the treatment that you actually want them to say yes to. And you can educate them on why wasting their money is a waste of their money. Therefore, you are now immediately an advocate for their finances. You are not trying to milk them for all their money. You're looking out for the best bang for their buck, the best care that they can get for their situation. And if they're a Ferrari candidate where it would turn out well, by all means, educate them on that. Be like, dude, you are a rare instance. It ain't cheap, but it's also the closest thing to getting you back what nature gave you. And if you have that opportunity and you have the means for it, then I'm down to build a Ferrari with you. Like, let's do that.
That's a great way.
Thing.
If you have the means, you know, if you have the desire and you have the means to do it, like this is, you know, I like how you put that in patient benefited verbiage, right? You're saying like, look, we can do anything, you know, technically I can give you one, but you're a rare candidate. I like that. And that's kind of getting into, I know we're getting the weeds kind of clinically. Well, it's the weeds for me, but it's still getting in
about teeth and all that, right? Like it's price bracket and like life.
Well, it's also too good, better, best, what you just described, right? So you gave 4 narrows, but like Gap does this, you know, with Old Navy, Gap, and then Banana Republic, right? It gives people options and it takes them from where they are and potentially, you know. So I think that model works, you know, across all industries, you know, which is why car manufacturers, to use the same analogy, have, you know, beginning entry models and the racing models, so to speak.
Hey, Currie, I'm using the boob analogy tomorrow.
Wait, which one?
Boob
analogy.
I got to pick and choose on that one. But you know, like it's real though, right? And a lot of times, if say the trim package aspect of this, say we're going with a overdenture. Now we are talking about a handful of implants on an overdenture. Per implant, absolutely changes the price tag and the quality of the overdenture. If you have an all-on X and you have 5 implants or 7, your personal experience doesn't change much. Our overhead does, maybe the longevity of it does, maybe the complexity of it does, maybe the predictability of it does, but the patient experience doesn't change. And in the overdenture situation, it's like, hey, if you put in 2, we can make you this denture, and you've now got like an entry-level Acura. If you put in 3 or 4, you've gotten a higher trim package. We've just added 4 legs to the table instead of 2. You will like your Acura better if you get the high-end trim package. You will get return per dollar as you put in on upgrades on stuff like a removable implant denture.
One thing I've noticed about you guys is that you're none of you are afraid to just step in front of it and address it on the front end, meaning like this is going to be expensive treatment, or what you need is going to be expensive, versus like waiting, which you see some people's like, I don't want to talk about it yet because I want to get all the way to the third appointment where we present the treatment. And then someone's like, whoa, I could never have done this. Right. But like people come in, even when I was doing kind of full mouth, it's like, this is gonna be like a car, huh? I'm like, yeah, actually a pretty nice car. It's going to be, pretty expensive.
My rule is the 2 times. If they ask twice, then you got to tell them. The first time you ask, they're like, how much is it going to cost? Like, well, Gina and I are going to put together a treatment, and we'll figure out exactly down to the dollar what that's going to be. And she's kind of the money lady. I talk teeth. So like, what are the 2 questions you got? And we'll go through all that at the end. 5 minutes later, yeah, but Doc, like, what's this going to talk? All right, realistically, I'm going to ballpark it because we will tell you the dollar amount, but like probably $40,000 per jaw, and realistically, you're going to benefit from 2. So like, if you're going to do it well, $80,000. And they're like, for real? Like, yeah, for real. Like, this is a hard thing. It's very expensive to offer. It's really an amazing thing, but like your car, it's an investment. But honestly, unlike your car, it's an investment that will daily give you actual return on your health, on your feeling, on your comfort, on your confidence,
on your life,
whatever.
Return on life.
Your life,
potentially
but
for the rest of your life.
If you can't look them dead in the eyes and tell them that it's worth $80,000, then you shouldn't be offering that treatment because you don't feel like it's worth $80,000. Like, you really
100%.
don't. Like, you got to be confident enough to say it at least once, dead-eyed, right at them, and unflinchingly. And they should talk about it with Gina. My time's tooth time. Like, let's talk about that. But like, if that $80,000 immediately is like, well, that is not happening, Doc. Like, okay, good, we got that out of the way. So let's talk about the dentures and the overdentures. What's doable? What is
right?
Like, I'm not here to shake you down. I'm the mechanic. The car that drove in today is this. My job is to offer and educate the best and work backwards. So if I can't do the best, let's do whatever the best is that you can do. Hit me with a number. Okay, let's do $20,000. All right, let's work with that. Here's what we can do for $20,000. And let's think about how you can build up to better. How does that look? And then they immediately also trust that you're not just $80,000 or I'm out kind of thing,
Right.
And that if you do a couple of those conversations, instantly it's not that hard to say $80,000 to somebody. It's a big leap the first time, and you're like kind of like, and they're like, do I feel good about that? But after they realize that that's the going price of a Porsche, you didn't come here for a Honda, man. I'm not trying to sell Hondas.
Yeah.
If you want a Honda, go to wherever, and they'll sell you some acrylic shit. You'll be back here in 3 years. Sorry.
Also, I think patients also appreciate, like, if you do talk ballpark numbers, high to low, at least they know that you're comfortable offering this type of treatment to them.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it goes both ways.
There's no reason to sugarcoat anything. No reason to sugarcoat it. There's no reason to sugarcoat anything. I mean, why are you going to get?
It's coming out in a minute.
Yeah, eventually.
I like that you just said, honestly, the takeaway though, Currie, is like, look, if you're not comfortable saying the price tag, then you're not, you don't see the value in it yourself.
Yeah, then you're not
That's
comfortable.
pretty amazing. Yeah. And so, okay. So obviously, Hamilton, and you started touching on this, is that like, you know, what I think sometimes we as dentists, I'm just going to group all of us collectively in a bucket, not all of us on the pod, but all of us dentists in a bucket, is that when we get nervous or uptight, or we start getting these pressing questions like that the patient is asking, our default when we get uncomfortable is to go more technical. And maybe you guys will agree or not agree, but we start talking like dentist. Right. And you start saying, well, you know, Ms. Jones, we're going to have to do the scaling and root planing. And then we're, you know, after the gross debridement, you know, that's going to be on the thing. And then we're going to lift your sinuses up. Right. And then we're going to take it and we're going to prep your tooth down. Right. And so we start saying all the things that are scary as shit, very technical. And it's like, what is going on? And so one of the big things I always tell people is like the most successful dentists I know aren't the ones that have the biggest dental vernacular. It's the ones who are able to have a high level of skill and then able to kind of communicate it down. And I think Einstein has a quote like that. I don't know what it is, but it's basically like, go Currie, you know, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid.
I was banging my oven. I didn't want to be clanging in the background. Einstein's rule is if you can't explain it to a fifth grader, then you don't know what you're talking about.
There you go.
Basically, like you should be able to explain astrophysics to a fifth grader if you actually understand astrophysics. And that's honestly a really good starting point, because plenty of our patients have no interest in high level things. They want like hit me with that. Like a fifth grader is a person. Like if you talk to a fifth grader, like they're
I've got one.
Little brain.
I've got one.
Yeah, like don't think of them as babies. They can hold a conversation. They can process information, but you can do high level stuff on fifth grader vernacular.
But that is a good analogy to think like, look, they're probably at the fifth grade educational level in terms of dentistry, what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so that is a good place to start communicating and not start saying like, and a lot of times people just don't want to know how the sausage is made.
The quickest way to turn somebody off is to talk over them. I mean, if you want them to shut down completely in your chair, you just start talking about
have a conversation with them reclined where they've got stuff on their mouth and you're literally standing like over them telling them what they need. Yeah.
Does that work?
Let's see if we can get you ultimately level 10 uncomfortable where you can hear nothing that I'm saying. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Just leave the obfuscation.
But that is a good thing. It's like, look, you guys are having these conversations when they're sitting up, you're knee to knee, you're looking at monitors, you're looking at all the impressive tech, you're shoulder to shoulder as the guide, again, the guide or the partner in this. And it's not, they're not reclined and they don't have glasses on, it's bibs. You're talking to them as if like they're your friend. Because if they say yes, they're about to become your friend and become like you're going to spend some time together.
You're married,
and they're entrusted. Yeah. And so I think that's a big thing, is even the setup of like making sure that person's comfortable. That's why I'm always, guys, pressing, even in conferences, about like become a master of body language, because most of what people tell you, they'll tell you if they're uncomfortable. They will not say, "I'm uncomfortable, doc, stop." I don't know when you say what you said, but they will give you a tell. Men start doing this, women start doing this, people start getting clenched hands, they'll start crossing their legs, all the things, those are tells. And I think those are cheat codes. If you ever played video games, you enter the cheat codes. I think those are cheat codes to help getting, people unarmed or disarmed from feeling vulnerable. And that's kind of next level dentist presentation, in my opinion. Doing the things we just said, like you said, Hamilton, is being able to like kind of not dumb it down. I hate that term, but distill it down. Let's just say,
right,
to where you're communicating high, big stuff, like complex stuff, VDO changes and all on X, and these complex veneer cases and multidisciplinary cases, and you're distilling it down. People are like, yeah, I get it. I see what you're going to do, and I see the benefit of doing this. So that is where I was saying, I think this is, the master dentists that I see aren't the ones that know the most or just sit there and pontificate. They're the ones that are highly skilled, but then they are masters at communication. And those are the ones that are just like, I'm so busy, I can't do anything. Yeah, you're busy. You know why? Because you're presenting the value, and people like you, and they feel they feel entrusted to you rather than talking over Hamilton. So that's a big thing Greg and I talk about. So I don't know why I'm pausing here, wanting to insert my value, I guess. All right. So kind of moving along. So obviously there's the presentation. Do all of you guys ultimately end up using a treatment coordinator? Pros and cons.
I think I
know the answer to this stuff, but I'm playing the host.
Yes is the answer. One of the things that we were just touching on just a second ago is keeping the separation of the genuine, true finances with us doing the work, us doing the diagnostic work, us doing the communicating and educating. It's nice to keep that separation from the financial with that, because we're the dentist, we're the educators, we're the one.
You're not saying like, well, what payment plan? You don't want to get into that kind of thing,
right?
And it also helps, I think, have a liaison, because like there are going to be instances where you're going to need someone to kind of say like, hey, can you intercept some of the dialogue, because there may not be things that you don't have to be involved in all the right. Well, doc, what about this? All these things. What about the directions to the office? Like you need a liaison to help you kind of coordinate all that patient coordinator, patient care intermediary, if you will. So you all agree that is at this level of presentation, that is something that is kind of pretty mandatory in what we do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And it takes the patient out of that high stress environment of being just purely clinical anyway. It can put them in a private room where they can sit knee to knee with someone that they feel perhaps less intimidated by, or I don't want to say like equal to or something in the sense of like that they're not equal to the doctors, but like a lot of people don't feel that way. You know, like they feel nervous to voice something in front of the doctor or whatever. They're just not totally comfortable. But like when they talk to our treatment coordinator, that's more their day-to-day person that they're used to interacting with in a much more day-to-day type scenario. They're no longer talking to the guy that just took a glove off after having his hand in his throat. You know, it's like that was a very like exam moment, and it's hard to be off.
Yeah. I thought you were the Michelangelo. Why are we doing this? Yeah, money talk. So that's
the analogy part, like the fifth grader part. You can equip your staff also to your team to actually educate on a fifth grade level, because they too can master that vernacular and that whole kind of just general approach, where like they're not the doctor and they shouldn't have to be responsible for explaining the nuanced intricacies of the clinical aspect of it, but they do need to be able to defend or explain certain steps or reasons why on very just uniform concerns and questions that all patients are going to have about that style of treatment. So if you can equip your team to have those same fifth grade level conversations and analogies, that's a weapon or a tool or an instrument that you can give them that's very rewarding for them, because they feel like they can talk shop. Remember that when Dr. Currie was talking about the Porsche, it's because of this. Like, remember the Ferrari was the one with all the bells and whistles that's kind of just wasteful, that really doesn't give you $1 for your return or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's a more digestible thing for everybody involved. And so your consult can kind of continue without you a little more effectively.
It's all about like the trust transfer, which I know, Pete, you've talked a number of times on Bulletproof, but in reverse. You know, it's instead of starting off with one of your team members creating the trust transfer and the bridge between you and your patient, it's now they are just reinforcing everything that you've just had
that you've already said. Exactly. Yeah. You know, Dr. Hamilton recommended this, and here's why. But Currie, you're saying have enough know-how to kind of reinforce it on a very topical level, almost not getting back into the weeds, but defending, like you were saying, well, why do we do that again? You know, and being able to defend it without having to say, let me go get Dr. Currie again.
Right. And like already bloody in a different
right.
room.
Like, you're bloody in someone else's mouth, right? That sounded weird.
Yes, it did.
Welcome to my life. It is.
Can it be done without a dedicated treatment coordinator? Yes. Does it make
what about an assistant?
A lot of strain? Well, I mean, so like in my office, you know, we just have less team members. So we've kind of had a hybrid role for a treatment coordinator, which they ended up taking over other duties just because that's what was necessary. And so my 2 assistants and 2 hygienists, we are all treatment coordinators.
Right.
Well, they are all treatment coordinators. So everyone's had to share that load. And so we're kind of seeing in this particular moment, we're seeing a little stress in that. And yes, we do want a dedicated treatment coordinator, because it will take a lot of stress off the clinical team to where they can focus on clinical dentistry, and we can have a better liaison to handle and handhold those cases to where it makes it a lot easier for everyone.
But something I see that you guys all do, thank you, Gandhi, for saying that, you know, pointing out that, like, yes, it's great, but it's not mandatory. First step is actually educating your assistant to be able to do stuff like that and being comfortable presenting. And that's a good skill to have regardless, meaning that like Currie, even Joe Beth could jump in there and has done it several times, even though she's been a chair side clinically with you or surgical side. She's done the presentation. So I think just having, you know, cross training, if you will, of being able to present treatment, but also being clinical is super helpful in the absence of having someone dedicated to just doing that for you.
It's also a matter of, she's heard me use this
so many times. That's what I was going to say.
Over and over and over.
That's what I was going to say.
Although I tailor each plan to each person clinically, the analogy sustains no matter who you are, no matter what we're talking about. There's kind of like 4 general tiers of treatment that we can then distill down into whatever is going to apply to that person. But like the overarching questions aren't in the details yet. Like the analogy still holds, and they can easily do that.
And because you guys come from Currie, like obviously a lot of your patients, you guys are all sedation certified. Is that the correct term?
Sure. That
Sure.
works.
All right, you can correct me. You can be a vet.
I don't have a better one. We're legal to knock you out.
Yeah, there you go. You're able, what I have witnessed is you guys use those as teaching moments. And Hamilton, I know that's kind of just deep in your DNA from teaching so many GPR, but I've watched you guys kind of use that, they're sedated and you're just kind of walking through the case. Hey, why I did that? Hey, do you know why I picked up this? Hey, and you almost collaborate within the case. And that is powerful beyond just making their job interesting. I think it's powerful going back to what we just mentioned about being able to stand on your own in the event of like defending, or I like how you said that, defending if they do have to present and the patient says, hey, what about this? Not to mention getting on the phone with the patient if someone calls from a patient experience standpoint, getting on the phone and say, hey, Dr. Currie is in a surgery right now, but is there something I can help you with? And actually knowing the right answer because you took the time to walk through as opposed to just doing the surgery, shut up, suck my spit or blood, and I'm moving on. You guys are see how that sounds weird again, Hamilton?
A little bit. It's okay.
So,
it's okay.
In y'all's world, it's there's a lot of blood, so I wanted to insert the blood.
Appreciate it.
So there's value in that, and it goes beyond what I'm saying. It went beyond you just saying here's a teachable moment. There's actually reverberations of the value of that.
Well, it's also team building as well. I mean, you're not only, it's not only powerful, but you're empowering them as well, which is huge. I mean, they're going to believe in what you're doing strong enough to where they can speak confidently to your patients about it.
Right.
Without you in the room. That's huge. That's amazing to be able to have your team to do that.
Yep. And that goes back to the first thing we were talking about is the setup and like, hey, have them watch they're able to have more qualified rapport with the patient starting out, even when, hey, we're going to set some videos to watch and you're having kind of introductory dialogue, right? The triage almost of it. Okay. So obviously it takes a lot of swagger to be able to be able to say like, shit, this is going to be an $80,000 case. It's going to be $100,000 case because the patient needs this. And then being able to present it to the patient. So we've talked about that. Where did you guys get? So this is going to go into the CE recommendation. Where did you guys get? Obviously, a lot of the training you got was from your GPR, but where would you recommend if someone wants to go next level? And give me some recommendations for some CE, because I get this question a lot. Excuse me. From a restorative occlusion VDO courses, and then also kind of getting into the different worlds. So give me some of your favorite CE and courses. Gandhi, let's start with you.
So my journey so far has been, I was pretty spear heavy, kind of coming out of residency and into private practice. I've done a lot of their seminars, workshops, following their kind of continuum, you would say. And then I took a break from that. And I took a lot of courses from various people that were just really good at what they did and learning their processes. Guys like Miguel Ortiz and Carlos Del Carvalho for high-level restorative, and learning photography. Like I always had a passion for photography, but I needed to learn dental photography. So I had to learn it from someone else. And, now I feel like I'm at a place where I can teach it to other people.
You do.
And I do. Mm-hmm. So, and that's huge. And that's, to me, that's like still the fundamental, but spear. And then I think my next venture is going to be Kois. So that's where I've got my eyes set for my next.
Do you think being such an avid photographer made you a better dentist?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's like looking at your work in high definition.
Yeah, it brings out all the ugly details.
All the ugly details. And I think that when you document your work and you just review your own cases, you learn from your mistakes, and every case is always better than the next. And I don't beat, like, I'll go back and look at some cases that I did 2 years ago and I'm like, damn, what the hell was I doing? Like, why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I change the gingival zenus to this or to this? But you got to start somewhere. Like, totally. You got to start somewhere. And if you don't start, then you're just going to regret it in 2 years and that you didn't do it. But I think one of the first cases I enrolled when I first came to Atlanta Dental Spa was like a $65,000 case. And it was a fixed case with implants. And it was kind of the Ferrari for that patient. And I remember Dr. Currie helped me design that case and plan that case. But it was one of those situations where it was the first time I could really flex in my own way and use all of the skills that I had obtained up until that moment and just let it all out. And it's still working. She's a happy lady.
After doing this, Gandhi, didn't you feel like, yeah, you like that was a $65,000 amount of effort and result? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot that goes into that for a year, and tons of attention to detail, not skimping on labs, not skimping on appointments where you're having to do temps appointments and developing tissue. And you know, like there's a lot into it. And when you get to the end of it though, you realize like, yeah, that price tag matched the quality of service that I just provided. And that makes that next consult so much easier because you realize that like that was a reasonable price tag and that's the going rate of really high quality dentistry.
And Currie, a lot of times I mentioned the price tag, and you know, I kind of started this with like the $100,000 case, and it's not so much the money as it. I think it gives everyone context of just what you said. It lets you know, like everyone knows when you're talking that level of case, it's big time, literally big time spend, and it's a big complicated procedure where you got to have more skills. And that's where I'm asking about the CE guys, is because so many times, like we show up, you know, a dentist may not have, like, look, if all you're holding is a screwdriver in your list, then everything's going to look like a screw. It's like, well, I don't know, like this looks right. But you guys are holding like Swiss Army knives. Like, I don't know. Well, I've got this thing. And then if you have to cut you, then I could pull this blade out. And if I've got this corkscrew, I can take the wine. Like, so you guys have lots of tools in your tool belt, but you've been dedicated to the process. You're perpetual learners. And that's another sign I see of like just OG dentists who are just in high demand, and they're just doing big cases and getting people healthy and happy, and they are getting rewarded because of that at scale. So Hamilton.
Yes.
What would you say is your recommendation?
Well, you know, I had the incredible advantage of, you know, being affiliated with the school for so long. And, you know, while I was doing my instructing there and working as director, I mean, I would get, you know, 400 hours of CE a year. Now, part of that was because I was actually doing some of the instructing, but at the same time, we would go off and do the courses. And a lot of the group courses like Hinman and Dental XP, those are amazing if you can take advantage of it and really focus on the specific lecturers that are going to be tailoring what your basic armamentarium is going to be at and what you're in your wheelhouse at your particular practice. Once I got outside of the school, which I'm going to the school is a great idea. There's some amazing courses that they're doing at MCG and other dental institutions around the Southeast. But, you know, after I got out of there, I did go to Spear and spent some time with Gandhi doing that. Coyce was also on my list. I mean, the guy is, I mean, he's tried and true. And you always got to continue getting reinforced with the stuff that has been tried and practiced for years and years and years. And it's not like the guy's not coming up with new material. It's amazing. The guy's a machine. One of the other ones that's on my list is Picos. You know, just getting.
He's awesome. He was on our pod.
Yeah, and getting, you know, his skill set is incredible. I mean, he is the best of the best at what he does. And so whenever there is somebody that is at that level, I mean, there is no reason not to go ahead and go take courses from them as often as you can. I mean, through my course of being director down at the school, I would see people repeatedly, the same people lecturing over and over again. And it was always different. I always took something home different pearls from the same lecturer. And it could even be the same lecture. It's amazing how dynamic these things are, because every time you go and listen to somebody, you're always going to pick up something different.
That's great advice. That's great advice. All right, Currie.
You know, I understand that I'm in a little bit of a unique position compared to most general dentists as far as like what my daily looks like, and that I'm primarily in surgery most days. If you're already doing surgery, absolutely, like what Dr. Hamilton said, like Picos is incredible. There's a couple guys, Matt Fine and Israel Putterman, who are on Instagram as Biodontics and Implants DC. They run a company called Surgical Influence. I think they've added Dr. Phil Walton to that. He's they're all periodontists. Phil Walton's out of Canada, like somewhere in Canada, maybe Toronto. I think Israel's out of DC, and Matt's out of Florida, like Tampa area. Those guys are incredible surgically and educationally. I've taken Picos a number of times, and I've always walked away a better surgeon for it. He's an incredible guy, he's forgotten more dentistry than I'll ever learn. But as far as like, if you don't do the surgery stuff, but you want to start introducing these cases to your practice, BioHorizons puts on a course called Teeth Express, and it's targeted not necessarily at you doing the surgery. It has a version of that too. But it's targeted as you, the restorative dentist who wants to enroll more full arch cases, even if you're not doing the surgery. Like if you're enrolling the case, having a surgeon place the implants and then you restore it, which is the majority of dentists in America are doing that. They're not the ones that are doing both the surgery and the restorative. But Teeth Express, it talks a ton about case presentation, about financing, about how to educate your patients in a helpful way. They give you a ton of material, marketing stuff, access to forms that you can kind of make into your own. They've done a really nice job with it, and you can target it as the restorative guy, the surgical guy, or both. And so a lot of times, like a surgeon and a dentist will go to the course together. They have various versions too. Some that are full arch live surgery days where you're doing the prosthetics on a model while the surgery is taking place in the adjacent room. The prosthodontist is narrating what's going on. The surgeon can chime in from time to time to say like, hey, this is the surgical decision I'm having to make. And hey, prosthodontist, what's your thought on this? Okay, do this, like lean it that way so I can have better access. So you get to understand more of the surgical and planning process, but then also the conversion aspect of it if you want to do that. But then there's a whole day or two purely targeted for patient education and marketing materials and how to treatment plan present. So if you're just trying to get your feet wet by enrolling more cases, not necessarily doing more teeth all on X cases, I think that's great money for your dollar, kind of, or like a bang for your buck, if you will.
Yeah. I got one more thing to add, just to give you props, Dr. Currie. If you ever get an opportunity to see Dr. Currie lecture, that is a fantastic experience.
Yeah. When do you do that? Who do you do? When's your next? Because I would agree.
I've been implant placement wise. I've been with a DSO out in Texas through BioHorizons. I've been doing kind of exclusively for them for a little bit. That's all I've been doing recently for hands-on placement. Mm-hmm. For lectures in general, I'm kind of open for whatever. I don't think I have one on the books at the moment. We postponed a couple due to COVID a while back, but a lot of oral surgeons actually bring me in around town to lecture to their own study clubs because I'm kind of a weird hybrid from their world to the general dentist world. So I'm kind of a conversion or like a bridge between the two. But I've been doing stuff with, honestly, with Instarisa. We're probably going to do some courses coming up that it will be full arch live surgery.
What is it?
I'm actually doing Instarisa. So talk about forward tech. This is where there's a facial scanner involved with our CT scan and our intraoral scan. So we're seeing truly the patient's face in different facial expressions. So we can move the teeth from various positions in and out of various facial expressions. And it allows us to have a much more accurate, more predictable treatment plan all the way through. It's about as current cutting day as you can get, but recently we've just kind of linked up where we're hoping to do one in December as well. Like the live surgery would probably be the first week in December here in Atlanta. We haven't actually released that open yet. We're actually nailing down the dates, but for people who are interested, we probably will be hosting one, which, Pete, I haven't run this by you yet, but I've talked with Tammy about it, but we're going to shift one
in our office.
In Johns Creek. We're going to do Tuesday through Thursday one week, so I can have it Friday, Saturday, and we'll lecture in the actual lobby, and then we've got two beautiful giant surgical suites where we'll be doing a full arch conversion. I'm not sure if it's single arch or dual arch yet, but we'll be doing a two-day course that's going to be pretty sweet, I think. But I think the second week in December is most likely when that's going to take place, and we may do a lecture only without the hands-on surgical part. We may do that in like fall sometime, September.
Wow, this is a lot. You guys are making the show notes like going to be poor Lacey's going to have to is making the show notes, having to put all the links in there for all the stuff you guys have mentioned. But it is good because honestly, like Craig, all he does is primarily Invisalign. So people are like, what's he? He's like, Invisalign's awesome. Right. And me, I'm like, I don't know, like Tony Robbins is pretty cool. Like, and so it gives, but people are like, no, that's not what I meant. I want actually like, where is the current day best shit going on in the space? And so that was what I wanted to kind of make sure it was touched on, because we do have, dentists who are wanting to go next level. Any closing remarks or advice or anything you want to impart to someone who may be listening that is teetering on kind of going bigger with either their presentation or their level of dentistry or whatever? Anything.
You got to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got to assume that everybody wants the best thing. Always give them the best thing and make them say no to that before you're willing to even talk about whatever the next thing is. If you're gonna,
my earbud just died. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
If you're recommending an MOD and composite, recommend an inlay and explain why, and then work backwards. You owe it to these people. You are the highest level mechanic that they're ever going to pull their car into the bay. They want to know what the best thing is. They don't want the patch that'll get them down the road. They want to know, and then they want to be like, that's too expensive, I'm not doing that. They probably still didn't understand the value of it, so you could work harder there. But always start super high and work backwards. You'll be astonished at how many people just say yes to super high. And then you're just a better clinician. You're doing better dentistry that's better for the patient, that's way more lucrative, which therefore makes it more fun regardless of what it is. And it's usually going to last longer and be stronger. So it's you can prep that same filling 3 times over the next 15 years, or you can do one inlay. It's better for the tooth. The patient paid the same in the long run, and it was more fun and looks better.
And I always default to telling people what would you want in your own mouth? I remember I had the conversation with someone's like, well, wait, you don't present 2 surface composites? I was like, do you want a 2 surface composite in your mouth? Versus having an inlay? I don't. Inlays are ultra the best thing you could have. Why would you want to put glue and then harden the glue and the 2 surface? Maybe that's the best option for the patient based on what they want, but there's no question that an indirect restoration is a superior restoration.
Yep.
Right.
So when you're talking to them, take the money out of the equation. If you put the money at the forefront, it'll always be at the forefront. You just got to talk to the patient about what's in their best interest. Ultimately, they will make the best educated decision on what's best for them. And if you do your job right, which is just talking to them, not at them, they will do the right thing for themselves. And if they don't, that's not on you anymore. That's on them.
Gandhi?
Not everyone's going to say yes, but if you be a resource and you are not you're not essentially selling anything, you're educating and you're being a resource of knowledge. People will come back. People will come back to you, and they'll come back to you, and they'll even thank you for how you've treated them. So
don't be afraid to encourage a second opinion either. I'm not scared of those. If somebody,
that's awesome.
If somebody's
good advice, Hammy.
Somebody's like, I was like, go talk to this guy down the street. I don't care. But when you have more of questions come up than questions answered, then come back and talk to me. I'll be happy to talk them through.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest disarming things that I do routinely. As soon as I can see something wavering, I'll be like, and you know what? If this is stressing you out, if you feel like you're not getting it, if you're overextended, whatever, go get a second, third, fourth, 18th opinion. This is important. This is a big investment. This is a big deal. This is your face. This is your health. You should be ultra comfortable no matter where you are, whether it's my chair or elsewhere. And when in this conversation, the patient realizes that I'm their advocate, right? I'm protecting them. I don't care if it's me, but make sure you go somewhere that's good and safe for you. And if that's here, wonderful. We're excited to be of service. But sometimes you got to see what's out there to realize what's good, or what really resonates with you. And to Gandhi's point, I don't want everyone to say yes. If everybody's saying yes, then I'm probably doing a crappy job offering the options, because I can't, not everybody can say yes to the best. And so you should always be presenting yes to the best. And also you can't please everyone. That's hugely important. And there's a good quote of I don't know what the key to success is, but the key to failure is trying to please everyone. If you're trying to please everyone, it's frustrating as hell. It's either you have no personality, or you're just staying in a super gray, boring lane that will never offend or push away anybody or whatever. Just be yourself, believe in your treatment, encourage them to go elsewhere. Don't worry about if they say no, and they'll come begging for you to do it. Oh wait, no, but I want you to be my guy. It's no, man, I don't know. You should probably go talk to somebody else. And this is this is a lot. And I don't feel like we're vibing right now. You should really like make sure that you're totally on board. Because if you're on board with my treatment, like that's what's critical. And because we're going to be diving in, like I want you to be understanding every part of the way, because we're getting married. Like I expect this to go well. And I expect to see you forever forward to do maintenance on your hybrid. Like we're getting married. I don't want to skimp on doing 4 implants. I'm going to go big and get you 5 or 6 so that this works forever, so that you're not trying to get pissed at me for being a cheapskate in 5 years and something's failing. Like go talk to other people, see what their plan is, see what their material is, see how many implants they're going to use, see what, like ask them questions about X, Y, and Z. But like, it doesn't have to be me, but like, make sure you go into a place that's safe and good for you. And the moment you're like backing away, they're throwing money at you. Like,
yeah, wait, you're saying you don't want me? Well, guys, I will just say, I think I know you all personally. Obviously, I think you're a gift to the profession. I think you're a gift to the patients that you are able to work on. Your care is unrivaled, your skill is unrivaled. And I'm blessed to be able to learn from you and be your partner and keep, progressing the vision that we have kind of down the field. And I really, really, really from the bottom of my heart appreciate the time that you spent here tonight. And I know we've all got, things more pressing than doing podcasts right after work and such, but a lot of people will get tremendous value from hearing what you said tonight. And just thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pete.
for having us, man.
Thank you.
Guys. All right, guys. It's another episode of the Bulletproof Podcast. Bulletproof Dental Pod. We are out.